hello everyone. So, I'm finally back from Tennocon, and it was fantastic. It was just really awesome, just in general. There's another thing that will be coming out also today. That will go more into that stuff if you want to see like my deeper, I guess, impressions of Tennocon. But let's get started on Tennolive and the stuff that we learned, because we learned some things that I'm very excited about, and just in general, it was just really good. It was a really good show, besides one aspect of the guy that was yelling a lot, and I couldn't hear certain things until later, and I was glad I was able to look those things up. But let's just get started, because we have the new primes that are going to be getting released, and they're real good. They're real good, honestly. So first we have the Tigris Prime. So first of all, this thing looks great. Instant, question though is, one, do we need this? Because the Sancti Tigris exists and is already like a top-end weapon that is very, very good. And has a Syndicate proc, it can heal you. What does the Prime Tigris have to do that could be an aside to, or beat that? And the speculation that I've seen, that I actually would really enjoy seeing, because I think it would be kind of interesting if it was this weird aside, is to just have the Prime Tigris be a critical shotgun, like the Vacor Heck. Or in a more impactful way than the Vacor Heck. Because, honestly, if you can imagine a Tigris that could red crit, that'd be a thing I'd be very interested in. But just in general, visually it looks really cool. Hopefully the stats can back it up. And following with that kind of theme, we've got Galvant Prime. Now, as much as I wish that this was like a big flat blade, as opposed to kind of, it's very much like a big stick, essentially. To me, a little bit with a lot like the regular Galvatine, as you might imagine. I really wish it was like a big flat blade, because we don't have a greatsword that's like that. But it still looks really good. And the speculation for this thing is that it's going to be essentially a slash-based war that is a little longer, which would be totally fine. Heavy blades are probably already the strongest melee weapon class by a pretty large margin, because they are really fucking powerful and they've got really good stances. But I don't know. Maybe a little more crit than the war, maybe something there, maybe a higher base, like critical damage or something. Not sure how it's going to work out, but it should be good. I can't imagine this weapon coming out and being bad, because even the regular Galvatine is kind of fine. Like, you could bring the regular Galvatine to some high-level shit and do well, so this has to be good, right? And then, going beyond that, we've got Necross. So, Necross has a little more stuff, because we heard that he's going to be receiving some changes. Fucking finally. I think that this Prime looks really good. Regular Necross is not a thing I'm a huge fan of. But this looks like it'll be really interesting, mostly for the fact that Desecrate is going to be changing. So Desecrate is fucking annoying to use, and I don't think it's fun. If you think it's fun, that's cool. But I'm pretty sure I'm in the majority when I say that, having a Desecrate build is just fucking boring. Because it's kind of, you're just looking at what your team is doing and you're hitting 3. And I think that is unbelievably boring. So it's either going to be a toggle or an aura. And the difference between those things was kind of messy on the panel. But there's two ways to go about thinking about whether or not it's going to be a toggle or an aura. So toggles need good duration and good efficiency, decent efficiency and good duration. That's what a toggle wants, because you get more efficiency from the duration, of course. And in general, Necross wants some duration. And whenever I'm talking about this, I'm talking about mostly like a Shield of Shadows build, where Necross wants a really large amount of strength. His range is okay. You can have good range on a Shield of Shadows build and still be fine. But then also, you want good duration, for your shadows to stick around for a while. So, if we're talking about the toggle versus the aura, it would be better to have it be on a toggle, I think. Because the rest of Necross's, stuff is, you can refund energy with Desecrate, so it could kind of power itself and keep giving you things. but you can't have it be an aura that lasts like a set duration unless you can refresh it. And then in that way, if you can refresh it, you would get way too much energy in, and Necross would just be a Warframe that has straight up unlimited energy. Unless the duration of it at base was just too low to be a thing that you wanted to like keep hitting, and then that you run into the same problem where you're just hitting 3 over and over and over and over and over again. Like every 10 seconds you hit 3 really isn't that much better than sit in place and spam 3. So hopefully they go with the toggle. I think the toggle would be better in general, but it'll be interesting to see what they change about Desecrate. I think it will end up being for the better. Personally, I would like to see larger changes with Necross than this, because I think his 4 is terrible, because the AI is just not good at fighting itself, and Shield of Shadows is kind of the only thing that makes that 4th ability acceptable. And I think his 1 could do a lot more, because when it's augmented, it's great, but when it's not augmented, it's kind of nothing. Yeah. And I'd like to see, I don't know, they were just going into changes that I'd like to see with Necross. I'm planning on doing another entire video on the changes that I would like to see happen to Necross, but we'll not go over that right now. But we did get to see Nova's deluxe skin. So I've seen this referred to as Zen Nova, because it looks like some Zenyatta shit, which is reasonable. I'm actually pretty excited for this. I don't like the base colors, but I like the skin, if that makes sense. I think the base colors are pretty rough, but the extra effects that they described with the like multiple hands coming out of Nova and also casting abilities sounds really fucking cool. I don't think I'll use that helmet, and I think I'll have to recolor this really hard, but it seems like it'll be great. They also briefly showed the weapon skin and the Sindana that's going to be coming with this. And then I didn't throw that up here, but it's on my Twitter if you'd like to go see all the like raw pictures from Tennocon and stuff. But yeah, it's a cool skin, and it's setting precedence for, well, it kind of setting precedence for Warframes with multiple limbs is really cool. I think that could be very interesting in the future. But speaking of things that are very interesting is the War Within's release. So I know we're all really excited for the War Within. I want to play it very, very badly. And they said that it is going to be done before the end of the month, which means the first week of August is when we're probably going to see that. Do not expect it this month. Honestly, like, I don't think... So, they've responded to, like, Shadows of the Rail releasing... Not Shadows, Spectres of the Rail releasing when it did, because it was too early. It was really, really rough. I've seen the hotfix stuff. Made quest possible. Fix progression stoppers. Like, that stuff doesn't usually make it in, like, to updates in Warframe. Like, we've had some rough updates, and there have been problems. That's always true, because they release on a very fast schedule. But the general stuff that we get isn't, this is no longer completable, we broke X, Y, and Z, and it's broken until a couple days later. Like, usually it's one or two things where it's like, oh, JV became incompletable because of one little thing. Or it's not like multiple quests have been completely just destroyed, or progression has stopped in the middle. So hopefully they take their time with the War Within, and it comes out real good with minimal, like, game-breaking bugs. That's what I want, and if I have to wait for that, I'm personally okay with that. Also because Spectres of the Rail, there's a lot of stuff to do now. That new Void, all of that stuff, there will be videos made on that. Expect that. There will be explanations on how that stuff goes after I've dived into all that stuff, which will be later today. Also, if you're seeing this, this will go up before I start streaming, so come hang out. Moving on from that, though, we have the Warframe cartoon / animated thing. It's not really cartoony. Like, it is, but it's not. It's better. Whenever they showed the preview, I looked at it and I went, I wouldn't really call that a cartoon, and I wouldn't really call that, like, an anime-style animation. It is really like a halfway point between the two, and it looks good from the preview, and I'm very excited to see that. But that's over on the Mashed YouTube channel. They did the TIE Fighter animation that everyone seems to really like. I haven't seen the whole thing myself. I've seen it over someone's shoulder, and it looked pretty good from that. I'm mostly going off of the Warframe preview, which looked fucking amazing. Moving on from that, though, we have Titania details on her abilities, and these are still a little rough, but they show a lot of promise, I think. So, her 1, levitate / disarm enemies / enemies. So the thing with that is enemy / enemies is whenever they specified, They said you could make allies proc immune in the area of the ability, which leads me to believe that this ability is an area of effect, which is incredibly powerful for a 1. An ability that can, like, stun and disarm enemies in an area that's a 1? That's a really strong 1. That's, like, contender for, like, strongest 1 in the game. That's up there in power with, like, Atlas's shit. That's really good. The 2, Soul Swipe, which is you can, like, pull individual buffs out of enemies, which seems... It's either... I think there's a really fine line between this being too awkward to use and not worth it, and it being an incredible support ability that is really strong, that you constantly want to be using and just, like, buffing the shit out of your teammates, and just generally hitting every enemy you see with it. And I think there's a lot of things that they can do to make the differentiation between enemies really important. For example, if you were to soul swipe, like, an ancient healer, and you hit them and you pick up their buff, if you actually got the ancient healer aura, which is 90% damage reduction for your teammates around you, after you pick that up, and then, like, modified by your power duration on how long you can get that, like, pulling, like, arson buffs off and, like, doing shit like that, where it's like, oh, you picked up an arson buff, you immediately send out a fire wave that affects enemies instead of your allies, obviously, and you are being able to, like, rip small buffs out of, like, butchers and stuff, where it's, like, extra melee damage that can stack, like, per more butchers, and then there's all kinds of cool things you can do, like elite lancers. It's like, we'll now stack on fire rate by pulling all these buffs out of these guys. Doing that kind of stuff and making, like, basic enemies have stackable ones, and then, like, the big, like, stronger enemies like bombards and heavy gunners have big buffs that don't stack. There's a lot of really, really cool shit that you can have in there that I think would make Titania really, really interesting, and give her a priority of targets that would be really fun. So I have really high hopes for that ability. I maybe don't think that they're going to go as far with that as I want, but it could be so amazing. And then the ability that I'm kind of disappointed with, honestly, Lamplight. I think it's called Lamplighter, actually. But mark enemies and levitate them, and they glow and then are swarmed by your razor butterflies. So, this ability honestly just seems a little boring to me. Like, for a third ability, I don't know, like, what kind of damage does it need to do to be something that you would actually use as opposed to using your 1 to CC enemies? What kind of area is it going to affect? Is there, like, some other bonuses, like, teammate-wise, or, like, what's happening with that ability? Otherwise, I think this 3, in general, kind of sounds a little lackluster compared to the rest of her kit, especially compared to her 4, which is just called Shrink as of now. So her skirt will basically turn into an Arcwing, and you will be itty-bitty, and you can fly around the basic maps. We learned that her Arcwing is not, or her, like, her skirt being an Arcwing, that's not usable to her in, like, the actual Arcwing modes. She will use the normal Arcwings for that stuff. And, obviously, along with that, other Warframes can't use her skirt, so we can't have a Rhino that can have a bunch of butterflies and shit, unfortunately. But this is supposed to be a thing where she shrinks down, releases a bunch of butterflies that will fight with her, and is a super high DPS mode, which is really strange, and, like, enemies would shoot down your butterflies, which would be damage to you, which is weird. It seems cool, but I'm not 100% sure how I feel about it, and her passive seems very, very strong, which is better bullet jumps for yourself and your teammates, which is really good. A very strong passive. Making everyone generally faster and just really, like, more mobile is really good, and it makes sense because she's really floaty. Also, side thing that I'm excited about, her Noble is going to make your Warframe float, so we can have, like, crazy hype-looking fucking Warframe flying around shit. So, there's that. And then finally, there was some mentions to Umbra during the Q&A. The interesting thing is that Jeff mentioned, he referred to Umbra as a person and not a concept, which is really interesting to me because the things that could entail are really deep. In that Umbra could be like a smith that could, like, take a weapon that you already have and enhance it in some way that you could affect. Like, you could be like, well, I need, like, if you have, like, a regular Excalibur and you take this Excalibur to this Umbra person, and you get to choose what the enhancements on that Warframe are, where it's like, well, I've taken my Valkyr to you, I want an Umbra Valkyr, and with that, I personally think that Valkyr needs more energy, so I'm gonna give her that. And if you could have, like, interesting things with your stats in that way, that would be really cool, and would add, like, a really big layer of customization. But I don't know if that's actually really feasible, but it seems interesting to me. And they, of course, not of course, I guess, but they clarified that there will be Umbra weapons, which visually I'm interested in like, a bigger way. I think an Umbra... Oh, what would probably be the best? Oh... I think I'd probably want to see... No... It's hard to say. There's a lot of Umbras I'd want. An Umbra Lex, I guess, would be really cool, but I'm not actually certain that's the one I want the most. It's kind of hard to say. But Umbra Vastos, actually. Umbra Akvasto, there you go. That's what I want to see. Those are too stylish. That would be really cool. That's my pick, actually. But there's a lot of stuff that we got, and all of it seems like fucking great, honestly. And after the Spectres of the Rail stuff gets all hotfixed out and everything's smoothed over, I think that the update in general is going to be really cool. Of course, I will be going over the Void stuff and all that in another video, but in general, Tennolive was super fun, and everyone that saw me there, thank you for saying hi. I really appreciate it, and like, it was cool to meet everyone. I got to meet some other content creators and stuff, and it was just a fucking great time. But yeah... That's Tennolive, that's Tennocon. It was fantastic, and I'll see you guys tomorrow.